It was 3:02 a.m. when I woke up to the sound that every homeowner dreads, a violent, hollow thud against the front door. It wasn't a knock, it was a kick. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Maybe one of those strange, half-asleep hallucinations. But then it came again, harder this time, followed by a deep voice shouting, "Open up! HOA security! You're in violation!" My heart dropped. HOA security? At 3 in the morning? I sat up, squinting toward the hall. The dim red glow from the alarm clock painted the doorway like a warning light. Down the hall, my son Ethan's door creaked open. He was home on leave, a US Marine, trained to stay calm under fire. I could barely make out his silhouette, but I could tell by his stance he was already alert. "Mom," he whispered, voice low but steady. "Get in the back room and lock the door." "I think it's just the HOA people again," I whispered back, trying to steady my shaking hands. "You know how they—" He cut me off sharply. "No HOA shows up at 3 a.m. with a flashlight and boots." Another bang echoed through the house, wood splintering this time. I heard footsteps crunching on gravel outside, 2 sets at least. My chest tightened as I crawled toward the living room. Through the small gap in the curtains, I saw him. A man in a fake police vest, something you could buy off Amazon, shining a light across my yard like he owned the place. And there, on his shoulder, a patch, not even the town police logo, but a cheap embroidered HOA enforcement. I could feel my pulse in my ears. The man yelled again, "We have reports of violations. You're required to grant entry for inspection." Violations? At this hour? My voice cracked. "Who the hell are you?" I shouted back. No response, just another kick. That was the moment Ethan stepped out from his room. Calm, barefoot, wearing a plain t-shirt, and holding the pistol I hoped he'd never have to use inside our home. He motioned for me to stay back. The door frame creaked. The cheap deadbolt strained. I could see the top hinge already loose. And then with one last slam, the door burst open, shards of wood scattering across the entryway. The man stepped in, weapon drawn, shouting something about authority of the HOA. Ethan raised his voice like a command. "Drop it now!" But the man didn't stop. That's when everything went from surreal to deadly. The next few seconds changed everything. The moment the door burst open, time slowed. Or maybe my mind just refused to believe what was happening. The fake cop lunged forward, shouting something incoherent, flashlight beam slicing through the dark like lightning. Then came the sound, sharp, deafening, final. One shot. Ethan's training kicked in faster than my fear could catch up. He'd fired a single, controlled round into the floor just inches from the man's boots. The muzzle flash lit up the hallway, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. Even the night air. The intruder stumbled backward, clearly not expecting anyone inside to be armed, let alone a Marine. He dropped his fake badge, hands trembling. The second man outside bolted instantly, his flashlight whipping across the yard before disappearing into the dark. Ethan kept his stance steady, barrel low, voice commanding. "Face down, hands where I can see them!" The man hesitated, eyes darting, lips moving like he was trying to come up with a lie fast enough to survive this. I'm with the HOA patrol. We were told—" Ethan cut him off cold. "You're trespassing, impersonating law enforcement, and you just broke into a home. Don't even breathe wrong." I stood there frozen, one hand on the kitchen counter, the other clutching my phone, trying to dial 911 through shaking fingers. My voice cracked as I whispered, "There's been a break-in. Armed intruders. Please hurry." While I spoke, Ethan hadn't blinked once. He kept his eyes locked on the man, every muscle tense. You could tell this wasn't his first standoff, but it was mine. In the corner of my vision, the hallway light flickered back to life, casting long shadows over the chaos. Broken door, scattered splinters, the cheap fake uniform. It all looked like a movie set, except for the smell of gunpowder still hanging in the air. A few minutes later, blue and red lights flashed outside, sirens cutting through the night. Relief should have washed over me, but it didn't. Because when the real cops arrived, the first words out of one officer's mouth were, "Ma'am, we've gotten multiple HOA complaints about this property tonight. Can you tell us what's going on?" I blinked. "What's going on? Your imposter just kicked in my door." The officer frowned, glancing down at the man lying face down on my rug, the fake badge glinting under the flashlight. Then he muttered something that made my stomach twist. "Ma'am, this guy's been on our radar. You're not the first house he's tried this on. Before I could process that, Ethan lowered his weapon and asked quietly, "So, what happens now?" The officer looked up from his radio, sighed, and said something I didn't expect. Something that made me realize this was far from over. "Now? We're going to have a long talk with your HOA president." By sunrise, my front yard looked like a crime scene. Because it was. Yellow tape, flashing lights, curious neighbors whispering behind curtains. The air was thick with disbelief and the smell of splintered pine. Ethan stood outside with his arms crossed, calm but unreadable. The officers had already taken the intruder into custody, mumbling something about attempted home invasion under false authority. But the moment that officer mentioned the HOA president, I knew this rabbit hole went deeper. At 8 a.m. sharp, she arrived. Martha Ellison, our self-appointed HOA queen, 60, perfectly pressed pastel suit, hair sprayed to the heavens. She walked up our broken path like she owned the place. And technically, in her mind, she did. "Good morning," she said with a thin smile that didn't match the chaos around her. "I heard there was some incident last night involving an HOA compliance officer." Ethan stared at her like she was made of glass about to crack. "Compliance officer? That man broke into our house, ma'am, with a gun." Her expression flickered, just for a second, before she smoothed it over. "Oh dear, that must have been a misunderstanding. We did hire some additional security for neighborhood inspections. Perhaps he overstepped." "Overstepped?" I said, my voice shaking. "He kicked our door in at 3 in the morning." Martha sighed, looking bored more than horrified. "Mrs. Sanders, we've had repeated complaints about your son's military equipment in plain view. The HOA board voted to address it." Ethan clenched his jaw. "You mean my American flag? The one you said was too aggressive for the neighborhood aesthetic?" She pursed her lips. "Among other things. Now, if you'll let me handle this internally." That's when the detective stepped forward. "Ma'am, you're not handling anything. Your so-called officer is in custody, and we're finding out who authorized him to act on behalf of the HOA." Martha's tone changed instantly, from fake polite to icy defense. "We don't authorize illegal entry. That man must have misunderstood his role." The detective raised an eyebrow. "He had an ID card with your signature on it." For the first time, she faltered. Her hand shook slightly as she clutched her clipboard like a shield. Ethan whispered, "She's lying." I could feel my pulse rising again. "You knew, didn't you? You sent him." Martha took a deep breath, then turned toward the detective, voice suddenly brittle. "I'll need to speak to my attorney before answering further questions." And just like that, she spun on her heel and walked off, heels clicking like gunshots against the driveway. Ethan turned to me, eyes dark. "She's not done. People like her never are." He was right. Because 2 nights later, someone left a letter on our doorstep. No envelope, no signature, just 7 words scribbled in red marker. "You should have stayed in your place." I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that letter showed up. Every creak, every gust of wind against the broken door frame felt like a warning. Ethan stayed in the living room with his rifle close by, just in case. He didn't say much, but his silence said enough. He was expecting something. By the 3rd night, the fear turned into resolve. I wasn't about to let Martha, or anyone she sent, intimidate us out of our home. Around midnight, I caught a flicker of movement through the blinds, headlights slowly rolling to a stop across the street. Then the engine died. No one got out. Ethan noticed too. "Mom," he said quietly, "lights off." We waited in darkness. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. A full minute passed, then 2. Finally, a door creaked open from that car. A figure stepped out, tall, moving cautiously toward our yard. But this time we were ready. Ethan slipped out the side door and disappeared into the shadows. I watched through the crack in the curtain, barely breathing. The figure reached our gate, flashlight in hand, scanning the porch. Then I heard Ethan's voice behind him, sharp as steel. "Don't move." The man froze. He wasn't wearing a uniform this time, just dark clothes, gloves, and a baseball cap. But when Ethan pulled back his hood, I recognized the face immediately. It was the same fake HOA cop. He'd been released on bail. I stepped outside, fury replacing fear. "You have some nerve showing up here again." He looked rattled, stammering. I came to apologize." They told me you'd drop the charges if I... Who told you? Ethan barked. The man hesitated, eyes darting toward the cul-de-sac. Martha. She said it was a misunderstanding. Said if I made things right, she'd make the charges disappear. Ethan exchanged a look with me. The kind of look that says we've got proof now. That's when the cruiser rolled in. Silent, lights off. Detective Reyes stepped out, hand on his holster. We were hoping he'd come back, he said calmly. We've been tracking his phone since release. Within minutes, the fake cop was in cuffs again. And with him went every shred of Martha's perfect image. Turns out she'd been paying him under the table to intimidate non-compliant homeowners. He wasn't even licensed, just an ex-security guard with a fake badge and a grudge. The HOA board dissolved within a week. Martha resigned publicly, claiming stress-related issues. But the neighborhood never looked at her the same again. As for us, Ethan rebuilt the door himself, reinforced the frame with steel brackets. Every time I pass it now, I remember that night, the sound of boots on gravel, the flash of light, and the lesson burned into my mind. Power doesn't make people good, and uniforms don't make them right. Ethan says he only did what any Marine would do, protect home and family. But I know better. He didn't just protect our home, he ended the reign of fear our HOA had built. And sometimes, all it takes to stop the entitled is one good man who refuses to back down. Don't forget to subscribe to Only Karens for more dramatic HOA and real-life revenge stories. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video. It really helps the channel. Which moment impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments below.